Welcome to Who's the Daddy with Alexandra K. I'm your host, Alexandra, and I'm joined today by Danielle. You want to say hi, Danielle?
Hello, everyone.
All right, we have a really interesting conversation ahead, so let's get started. All right, so Danielle, we met on a Single Mom by Choice Facebook group
Yes.
a few years ago. But when was the first time that you actually thought, like the first thought of becoming a single mom by choice? Like, how old were you? What were you doing? Like, what made you even think about it?
So I was in my 20s. I would say
Me too.
24, 25.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't dating seriously, but like kind of, I was
Mm-hmm.
outside basically. And I said
Not
to myself, you know
outside.
what? I was outside, girl. I was like, you know what? By 35, if I'm not married or in a committed relationship, I will use a donor to have a child. Like I want to be a mom more than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
I've always had children in my presence since I was 9 years old, wanting to like babysit and be mini
Mm-hmm.
mom. So, and I was raised by a bomb single mom. So I was like, I can do this, especially if I have her in my corner.
Mm-hmm.
So I made that decision in my mid 20s. And then at 35, I met someone, we dated a year, we broke up, and I said, you know what? I'm pulling the trigger. I'm going for this. That's it. And I started.
Okay. So at 35, you decided to move forward. What were there any conversations that you felt obligated to have with certain people prior to starting, or I won't say prior to starting, but at any point during the process, did you feel like you had to explain yourself to anyone?
Explain myself? Absolutely not.
I
Excuse me.
already I already know you were going to say that.
I explain myself to nobody. I
So
did have
who did you share your choice with, your decision with?
my mother.
Just your
I,
mom.
I shared it with my mother at first, initially.
Mhm.
I'm gonna do this. What do you think about it? Because she is basically my co-parent. She watches my daughter while I go to work. So if she wasn't on board with it, it probably wasn't something I was gonna be able to do. So once she
Mhm.
was like, "I'm on board, let's go," I pulled the trigger. I did have a conversation with my friends at, I believe it was a New Year's Eve party. I said, "Hey guys, listen. This year I'm starting. I'm gonna have a baby with the donor. I'm starting fertility treatment. What do you guys think about it?" Everybody knows me and the type of person I am, so they were like, "Let's go, let's go." I asked the godparents well in advance, so they were on board. They were with me every step of the way through the journey, and I just did it. I never felt like I shouldn't be doing this. I
Mhm.
never questioned myself.
Yeah.
Once I made the decision I was gonna do it, we were off to the races.
Yeah. Yeah. That's how I was too. I had my consultation in February of 2020 and I was pregnant by July.
Lucky you. Lucky
Like,
you.
I know you had a very long or a longer journey than I did, but yeah, when I was ready, I was ready. Like, okay, let's go.
um, so I decided, like I said, I had the New Year's Eve party
Mhm.
coming into 2021, right after the whole COVID situation.
Mhm.
Um, I started looking for my doctor. Big thing for me is I wanted a black woman.
Yeah.
So I found my doctor. I had my first consultation in January of 2021, and then I had my first IUI in July of 2021. And then that
Mm.
started the trek. It wasn't a journey, it was a trek up an icy hill barefooted, but I made it.
You did make it. Wait,
Yes,
how
I
old
did.
is Lexington now?
Lexington is 8.5 months. She
Oh
will be
my
9 months
goodness.
on the 21st.
Aw. Okay, so tell, like, walk the listeners through how you chose your donor. I know people talk about how black donors are harder to find. I didn't have difficulty finding a donor personally, but I know
Um,
people talk about it. So tell us about how you.
I researched different banks. Once I had my first consultation, she told me different banks to look at. I researched different banks. I found one that had more African American donors than the rest because that was
Mm-hmm.
my one criteria. Had
Mm-hmm.
to be African American. I found one donor and I was like, oh, he looks like me. Like, this is it. I'm going to use him. And then it turned out we were genetically incompatible. We both were a carrier for sickle cell, which
Mm,
we were not going to do.
yeah.
So got a little bit discouraged, and then like a week and a half later, boom, my donor dropped, and I was like, oh, he is fine. Okay, I would date him in real life, yes. And
No. Shut up.
That's how I basically picked my donor, African American. And could I see myself dating you in real life? Would we have a child in reality? Yeah, I could see myself dating you. We probably could have a child,
Wait a
like if we got
minute.
yeah.
Mm-mm, Danielle. What about him made you say that you would date him? Because I have not seen one donor on them websites that would make me say I would date you.
This man is fine. I'm not even gonna
No.
fine. He is fine. Yes.
We're supposed to go in somewhat of an order, but have you met donor siblings?
I'm not in person yet, but I'm in contact with a whole bunch of them. There's a Facebook group with the
Okay.
moms. So there's two groups, one with just the moms and one with the donor in it.
Wait a minute. So did you use a sperm bank?
Yes, I did. And so the
Wait, so
one
how
mom,
did he get in the group?
I'm gonna tell you the one mom. So the babies came in waves, and I think we're going on the fourth wave of donor children. Lexington was in the third wave, but the first mom, she's a part of a lesbian couple. She had the first baby from him. She started a group, and she started like a running list of the siblings, and she found the donor. I don't know how she
Girl,
found the
I found
donor.
my donor. I want to know if he'll join my group.
Maybe, maybe. And he was in the group. He commented, and then one weird mom was like, I don't want him in the group. So they started another group with him in it without, her, of course, and whoever was uncomfortable. And yeah, so I know all of their names and how many siblings there are. We were
Yeah.
actually supposed to go to one of the birthday parties of one of the donor siblings, but we can't make it because we got to go to Jamaica.
Well, look, Jamaica's going to be a fun time, okay?
Yeah, it is.
So, okay, so do we talk about your criteria for choosing a donor? What were you looking for when you were looking for your donor? Like, were you looking for height and physical more? Were you looking for intelligence? Were you looking for I don't even
I
know.
want to say a mix. Height was
Hmm.
important. I'm on the shorter side, so I wanted
Wait, how tall are
tall
you?
5'6".
You are not short.
Well, I didn't want to like in case it was a boy, I didn't want a short son,
Oh,
right?
okay, I see what you mean. Okay.
So I picked one that was taller than me, so if it averaged out, like the kid was on the taller side of short, if that makes sense. Um, I wanted somebody who was musically inclined because my
Okay.
dad is musically inclined, and so is my grandma. So I just
Mhm.
wanted that in there. What
Mhm.
else? I did look for education, like at least college. He has a master's degree in teaching, and
Okay.
then I went for looks, and
Mhm.
like I said, would I date you in real life? And of course, the number one was had to be African American.
Yeah. So I
Yeah,
definitely wanted a black donor. And it's funny that you say that like the first donor fell through for you and then you were like, I found the one. Because that's kind of how mine was. I had one donor like favorited. There was one thing. I don't know why I'm nervous to say what the one thing is that I didn't like. I think it's because I told this one thing on one of those Facebook groups, and somebody said it was so rude that I didn't want to choose him because of this one thing. But he had a speech impediment, and I feel like this speech impediment would be passed down.
that's not rude. That you're
That's what I
thinking
said.
you're
But anyway, so he was sitting in my favorites, and I was like, every other thing about him is like acceptable, you know. And then my donor popped up. Like one day, I remember I was on my second floor. I was in the bathroom. I'm like, let me go look real quick, and I was like, and so I talked about this earlier how if they have like a genetic disorder, you get like a pop up at the top of the screen. Well, depending on which site you use, but
Mhm.
some of the sperm banks will have like this pop up thing, and you have to acknowledge that they have like a genetic disorder before you purchase the vials. And so that was one of my deal breakers. Like, I'm not choosing a donor that I have to accept like a genetic disorder from. So, my first one didn't have one, and my the one that I actually chose doesn't have one. So I was like, oh my gosh, okay, he's black. He doesn't have genetic disorders. His baby pictures are so cute. And I don't know if I told you, I found my donor in real life.
Yes,
Yeah, I
I
found my
remember.
donor.
I remember that story on Instagram. I'm like, that is so something I would do because I
Yeah.
also went and like a friend requested my donor and sent him a message. I'm not even gonna lie.
Really? Would you ask him? Or would you say?
I just said I was like, thank you for your donation. Like without you, I wouldn't have been able to become a mother. At an older age. The baby at that time was 7 weeks old, and then I
Mm.
said something conflict, like, and you need to find a new football team because he's a Dallas fan and I'm a Giants fan. So I was like, you need to
Oh
find a new.
goodness.
But I guess it's still sitting in his like people you don't know or whatever box, or like the other box because he didn't respond.
Mm. Yeah, I messaged my donor too. And I think that he just was not expecting me to message him because I asked him, so at sperm banks, they're like, "Oh, well, we give them the option of whether they are like known donors or not known donors, but like whether they're
I
anonymous or open ID and all that stuff." And it's like, "Yeah, but you don't give them the option of knowing these children prior to them turning 18." So, I reached out to my
right.
donor and I asked him, I'm like, "Would you be open to any level of a relationship prior to the kids turning 18?" He's like, "I don't know how to answer that, but I would be open to it."
Oh,
I'm like, "Well, you answered it, so that's
right.
good."
Here we are.
Right, exactly. And I just told him, I was like, "Well, feel free to reach out whenever you're ready." And he hasn't reached out yet. But I'm like, I'm not gonna message him again because I don't want to like bother him. But
Right. He
yeah,
will.
so yeah, hope so. I hope so. And it's so funny because all of the kids have very similar features. So
Mhm.
do you find that your daughter's siblings have very similar features?
Absolutely. They have the
Yeah.
same round face and
Yeah.
eyebrows.
Yeah. All of my kids, well, all of my kids have the big ears and their siblings all have big ears. So,
Oh.
so I know that we met on like I guess we would call it like a support group, but did you find any surprising sources of support or any surprising sources of resistance, like people who just were like adamant that you should not be doing this?
Um, I didn't meet any resistance. Well, I met a little bit of resistance with my father, and
Mm-hmm.
being that we didn't have like the greatest relationship to begin with, I just went no contact with him during the journey and called
Yeah.
it a day. But
How is
I
he now that Lexington's here?
so I've spoken to him once since she's been born back in
Mm-hmm.
October. And I reached out to him because I faced like a lot of tragedy. My little brother and my grandmother passed away within 10 days.
Oh my
So
goodness.
I reached out to him just like, hey, a lot of people in my life are dying. Just call and see how you are. We talked for a little bit. He said he wanted to meet the baby, and that was that. I won't reach back out. If he wants to meet her,
Yeah.
he can reach out to me.
Yeah.
Um, as far as the support, it was unwavering. Like I
Yeah.
was so overwhelmed with the amount of support that I found in
Mm-hmm.
everybody, like
Yeah.
the support groups, people in my life,
Mm-hmm.
friends. Like I'm in a few travel groups, and some of the girls that I only met once or twice were like so supportive. All sent gifts for the baby shower. It was overwhelming the amount of support that I
Yeah.
received. Yeah, I just knew this baby was going to be well loved, and the village was going
Exactly.
to. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you ever like rethink, or I know you said you were like full throttle, full speed ahead when you made your decision. Did you ever rethink like, maybe I should think about this
I
or
think
rethink this?
halfway through the journey when I met so much adversity, I was
Mm-hmm.
like, am I supposed to be doing this? Like, is there a reason why this is so hard when it was supposed to be so easy on paper?
Mm-hmm.
And
Tell the listeners about some of the adversity that you went through, like trying to conceive.
whew, okay, so originally when we did all of the fertility workups, for my age, my numbers were great. Like there shouldn't have been a problem with anything. I did
Mm-hmm.
have one block tube, but the doctor was like, people get pregnant with block tubes all the time. We did two IUIs. They didn't work, and I got a little impatient. And I'm like, let's go to IVF.
Mm-hmm.
I did my first round of IVF. I got a whole bunch of eggs. It was
Mm.
beautiful. Only like 30% were mature, and I ended up with zero blasts from that cycle.
Oh
And
no.
yeah, and that cycle, because I was in a rush and I was a Russian, I didn't meet the insurance criteria. So I took out a loan for that cycle. So at
Mm.
the end, when there was not any
Oh
embryos,
my
it felt like
goodness.
flushed all that
Yeah.
money down. And then I circled back and I had to go through the IUIs again to get insurance to cover IVF. So I did four more IUIs that all failed. I then did another round of egg retrieval. I got no blast from that one. I
Wow.
went on a third egg retrieval. I ended up with, and in that time, let me just say, I switched donors because the donor that I ended up with now, I did the first two IUIs with him. They failed. He was unavailable. So then I did my next four IUIs and my first two rounds of IVF with a different donor. All failed.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And he had no reported pregnancy. So maybe it
Mm.
wasn't him.
Yeah.
For my third round of IVF, this donor was available again. So I went back to him. I got no, I got two embryos. I transferred both of those separately, and I had two failed transfers.
Oh
I,
no.
yeah. I then went on to do a fourth egg retrieval. I
Hmm.
got two more embryos, and my first ever day five, because the first two were day seven.
Okay.
That perfect day five, 5AA embryo, untested, is now Lexington Lane.
Aw. And
Yeah,
just so everyone listening understands, so typically you aim for like a 5-day embryo.
yeah,
Sometimes people transfer embryos at 3 days. It's sometimes said that like the uterus is like the more ideal place for the embryo to be, so they will transfer the embryo sooner, just for fear that something might go wrong in the lab. And then 7-day embryos, they let them continue to grow just to see if they'll turn into blastocysts and make it. So when she says it was her first 5-day blastocyst, this was like the ideal, like what people are looking for, a 5-day blastocyst. Go ahead.
yeah. And as far as the grading, it was like 5AA or something like
Mm,
that. So it's like perfect. I forget what they call it, but you know what I'm talking about. Everything
yeah.
looked perfect to the embryologist. We transferred her. We changed the transfer protocol. The first two I had been doing the progesterone, the medicated one.
Mm-hmm.
For the third one that worked, we did a modified natural. So there was no progesterone. I took letrozole. I ovulated on my own, and then seven days later, we transferred her. And 9 days after that, I got a positive,
Stop. I
and
wanted to do a natural transfer so bad.
it was so much easier. It was so much
So you
easier.
didn't do PO injections or anything?
Not for that one. For the first two, I did,
Yeah.
but for the third one that worked, no PO injections. I took
Wow.
progesterone orally.
Oh, okay, 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 okay. Interesting. Do you think that seeing photos of your donor was like a deal breaker for you? Like you needed to
No.
see photos?
Oh yes, absolutely. And I needed to see baby photos as well as adult photos because you can be such a cute kid and grow up into a not so handsome adult. And so yeah, I needed to see the lifetime photos.
I didn't see adult photos before I chose my donor.
Really?
I only saw baby photos, and I found my donor on Facebook like either in my first or second trimester.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
But I'm like, it's okay. Everything worked out. Everything worked out.
Kids are gorgeous.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's so funny because I showed someone my donor recently and they were like, oh, the oldest looks just like your donor. I'm like, no, she looks like me.
Looks like you.
Girl, and me and my donor do not look alike, okay? We do not look alike. All right, so what is a word of advice? What's something that you wish you knew prior to starting the journey, and a word of advice that you would give to an aspiring or hopeful single mom by choice?
Something that I wish I knew prior to the journey.
Mm-hmm.
How strong this journey will make you, especially if it's not a straight course to the finish line.
Mm-hmm.
This journey showed me strength that I didn't even think I had in me to
Mm-hmm.
keep going because I knew that at the end there would be a baby in my arms and I would go to any length to get that baby. So the strength that it showed me, I wish I knew I had that strength beforehand. I
Yeah,
really.
yeah. And what
Um,
advice would you give?
Advice I give to moms going down this path is let go of all timelines. I give that to every platform. Let go of all timelines because when
Mm-hmm.
I started, it was I'm going to have an IUI in July, I'm going to be pregnant, I'm going to have the baby next March or whatever, I'm going to have my baby shower. I was fixated on a timeline and it
Mm-hmm.
just didn't go that way.
It's
Let it
hard to
go.
drop the timeline though.
It is. It is hard to drop the
Especially when you're in groups and you're like, granted, I know that I didn't have many delays, but when you're in groups and you're watching people get pregnant and you're like, whoa, I did that. I used that protocol. I did this. I added metformin. I did this. Like, why
yeah,
is it working for them? Like we have similar stats. So yeah,
yeah.
that's a good one. Like drop the timeline. All right, so let's switch gears a little bit. We're going to jump into solicited advice. This is the advice column portion of today's episode. We're gonna listen to a listener question and then offer some real unfiltered advice. Today's question comes from one of our listeners, and they write, you ready?
I'm ready. Oh God.
Okay. Dear Alexandra, I'm currently going through IVF with the plan to become a single mom by choice, but I'm also dating. Right now, I'm not sure how or when to bring this up with someone I'm seeing. I don't want to share something so personal with just anyone, but I also don't want to wait so long that it feels like I've been keeping a major secret. To complicate things further, my path isn't set in stone. If I meet the right person and things progress well, I might reconsider going the single mom by choice route. But if dating continues the way it has, I fully intend to move forward with IVF. Knowing that, does someone I'm dating even need to know about my IVF plans? If so, when's the right time to bring it up? Signed, Dating and Deciding. What do you think?
Ooh, that that's heavy because she's willing to switch gears if
Right.
the right person comes along. I was not willing to switch gears. I
Do
was
you think that
so
she's willing to switch gears because she's so early in the process? Or do you think that some, cuz I feel like on like the support groups that we're in, women will say like they want the nuclear traditional family, and so they I like we're in them long enough to see a woman say like they're pursuing IVF. Oh, they met a partner and they're going to pursue things and see how that goes. And then they come back and they're like, "Oh, things didn't work out with this person." And so it's like, do you think that she's in that mindset because of where she is on her journey, or do you think maybe
so I
she
think I think it's a few things where she is on the journey because she's just starting out.
Mhm.
I don't know how old she is, but that might also be a factor. If
Mhm.
she's younger in the journey, like early to mid 30s, maybe even in her 20s, because some women are now,
Mhm.
that's a factor because you have more time to see if this is going to go someplace
Yeah.
or if you're going to somebody. And maybe not 100% concrete in the decision
Mhm.
of being a single mom by choice and how she will be
Mhm.
to looked at by the world because this is still something that's kind of like faux pas, especially
Yeah.
for African American women.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
I'm a little curious because I guess I'm wondering like if you're willing to go down this path, but you're also like something can deter you from going down the path. Is it the path that you should be going down?
That's also my thought. If something is going to deter you, it's probably not the right path
That's
because
what I
there
was
wasn't
thinking.
a path for me, and I dated the entire path. Um, she
Girl, you
asked
dated
when
the whole time you did IVF and while you were pregnant?
whole time IUI from the first IUI I dated.
Danielle.
Well, yes. Um, she asked how long she should wait to tell the guy. I
Mhm.
don't think you should wait. I think you should be upfront. Let him know that this is something you're thinking about, something you're pursuing. Also, let him know you're not dating him with the intention of him being the father. Like with or
Mhm.
without you, this is going to happen. You can get on board or you can get off right now.
Yeah,
Totally up
that's true.
to you. But I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
Period.
But then the difficult part is for her, she's not necessarily saying she's going to do it regardless. You know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
that's something that I would probably share. Like this is what I'm doing. If you want to be here while I'm doing this, that's fine. If not, that's fine. But she's saying she'll switch. You know what I mean? So yeah, I don't
Mm.
know.
Okay, friend. Good luck.
I definitely think that she should be upfront
Yes.
and tell him like upfront what she's doing and what her plans are, and that if things work out, she's willing to put things on hold. But
Yeah.
if things don't work out, she's going to move forward. You know what I mean?
Right. And also, don't let him think that he's going to be the deciding factor. So, like your
Yeah, that's good.
behavior, I'm not going to settle for YN behavior. Okay.
Oh,
So
Jesus.
if that's what you're going to do, then you can leave now. Don't think that I need you to have a
Yeah,
child because a lot of men have that like
they do.
machismo, need me. And
Hmm.
guys,
Well, what's funny is one of my exes said to me, like, how this got in his brain. It's like, what type of content do you consume? But he said something to me like, you might decide when we have sex, but I decide when we get married. And I'm like, is this something that y'all think about? And then also, I don't want to get married, so I don't think you have the leverage over me that you thought you had.
Right. And that's another thing. So I never had like, did I want a wedding? Yes, it was cute. Like I love David Tatura. I love Panina Tournay. Like
Panina
that's
Tournay.
okay. She now makes jewelry, so I can get myself a ring for
Oh,
Mother's Day,
okay. Yes.
and we can Panina, right? I don't know that I want to be a grown man's dependent, and that's essentially what you are
Mm.
as a wife. And I realized that in one of my jobs when I took the guy's insurance card and his wife was listed as a dependent. And that kind of
Mm.
solidified for me, like, do you want to be a wife? It,
Well,
it,
it's
it is.
interesting that you say that because my mom works like voter polls, and she's told me how she'll see women come in, and their ID card is in their husband's wallet. And I'm like,
I
wait a
work in a
minute.
hospital setting.
What if you have to go somewhere? What do you
Right.
do?
I worked on Mother Baby for 3 years doing hearing tests. And the conversations that I heard between the stay at home mom and her husband, never. I don't want that. I want to be a mother though. I want to
What do
be
they
the mother.
sound like? What do you mean? Like, just give me a little bit.
Okay, so for instance, I'm in a room one day and I'm testing the baby's hearing, and dad has to go down to Starbucks, and mom goes, "Do you want to use my ATM card so it feels like you're using my money?" And he goes, "No, because it's not your money, it's all mine, and I know it." I'm like, "Oh, okay." Never want to be talked to like that. Like,
Oh
if
my
I'm gonna be a
gosh.
stay-at-home mom, you got to put me on the payroll and give me a paycheck. Like, I can't
And
ever
stay at
just
home moms do a lot. They
do a
do a
lot. That's
lot.
the whole job. If that is
Mm-hmm.
a 24-hour job, you can't clock out of that. That's from sun up to sundown. So yeah, and
Yeah, they do a
and,
lot.
and
That's
if I'm gonna
crazy.
do that, I want to do it on my own accord, not because there's
Mm-hmm.
a man behind me. I
Yeah.
don't know. You know, a lot of men will say I'm like what we're super feminist and all the crazy stuff that they like to comment.
I just think that we were taught one thing as little girls in the 90s, and boys were taught what, I don't know, they've always been taught as little boys, and they weren't teaching us what they were telling girls in the 50s. You know what I mean? So you can't
Yeah,
expect us to have to like become the same women
yeah,
when those women were teaching us to be different women.
yeah. Because my mom didn't push that agenda. Like she pushed
Mm-mm.
the strong woman, the independent, the do what you want. You know, like she always pushed that attitude. She never pushed the you need a man.
Oh,
You
I'm
won't be.
I'm open to some help, but not
Yes.
need.
Hello.
Yeah.
It's a want. It's not a need.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do it regardless.
Yeah.
If now
Yeah.
if you want to help me, we can be partners. But that's
Exactly. Come
yeah.
join me over here.
We can build together, but I don't. I'm not gonna. You're not gonna build off me, and I'm not gonna build off you.
Right.
We're gonna build.
I agree. All right. So before we wrap up, I want to ask you one question. This question is a question that if you become a single mom by choice, you're going to run into the question. It's the title of the podcast. How would you respond to someone asking who's the daddy?
There is no daddy. I used a donor. That is how my child got here. When she is old enough to understand what's going on, she can call that other person who gave me the other half of her DNA whatever she likes.
I
But there's
agree.
no daddy. We don't say daddy in this house. I honestly try to like avoid stories with daddy in it too
Oh, you
early on.
do.
I try to. There's a few that have daddy in it because they're like brown baby based books, and so like dad is in there. When I read that part, I immediately say, you don't have a daddy. Mommy use a donor." So that's
Mm.
something in her head from the beginning
That's
because there's
interesting because
no
people
daddy.
always, yeah, people always ask, like, well, when are you going to tell them? And, like, what are you going to tell her when she finally finds out? There's no finally finding out.
It's
Like,
something
this
she
is
will
just
always
like a
know
common thing. Like, we don't hide that my kids are donor conceived.
at
It's
all.
not, it's not a
Everybody knows.
secret. Yeah. It's not
Everybody
a
knows.
secret.
even when I made my pregnancy announcement, I made it in the form of I am on a solo mom by choice path, and I finally made it. I think even when I announced that I was going to go through the journey, because I announced all of this on Facebook, so there
Mm-hmm.
was no surprise to anyone. I said I made a joke like, when I pop out pregnant, don't ask me who what his name is, ask me his donor number.
Oh, dang. I didn't even think to say anything like that. I never announced anything until I was like 8 months pregnant. I never told anyone anything. And it was 2020. So
Right.
everybody was like secluded. I was working all day. So, but yeah, no, I didn't share anything with anyone prior, really, not really prior to her being born. When she was born, then I like announced it. But even then, I
Um,
never really said, I don't even know to this day whether I've said that I used a sperm donor to conceive my kids, like on my Facebook page,
oh wow, yeah,
like to
I just
friends
let
and family on Facebook.
I I just put it out there so there was no confusion. So ask me no questions
Yeah.
because my mouth is very slick. So if
Yeah, I
I
know.
give it beginning and you know, and then you come at me and ask me something crazy, my response is warranted because it's been known from the very beginning.
Right.
Also, because I had such a hard journey to get the baby, I'm happy
Mm-hmm.
that I shared it early on because I
Mm-hmm.
received so much support. I shared every failure, just like I shared when I was finally pregnant. I didn't share the failures in depth, but I would like throw something out there, like, say a prayer for me, trying to
Mm-hmm.
have my baby. It's hard. I would just give a little clue to it's not happening yet.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Well, that's a wrap on today's episode. I want to thank Danielle for joining me today. You want to say anything, Danielle?
Thank you for having me. It was fun. It's my
Of
first
course.
podcast, so I
Aw.
hope to do many, many more. For all the ladies out there going through this journey, I wish you so much baby dust. When you get to the other side, whether you had an easy journey or a difficult journey, it's worth it once you get to the other side. When you hold that
Mm-hmm.
baby in your arms, you will see why it took you what it took you to get there.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. All
thank
right.
you for
Well,
having me. Uh,
you're, of course, I'm glad you came. Thanks for listening to Who's the Daddy with Alexandra K. If you know anyone who would resonate with Danielle's story or would like to hear this episode of the podcast, please go ahead and share it with them. And until next time, keep making the decisions that are best for you.